quality of footage you can get from a smartphone has never been better, with some phones nowadays capable of 4K HDR recording. Check out my review of the Sony Xperia XZ2 for instance. But unfortunately, one thing that hasn't got better is our enormously shaky, pathetic human hands. And unless you're trying to remake the Blair Witch Project, I think all of us who use a smartphone for any amount of video could benefit enormously from a smartphone gimbal stabilizer. The footage you're seeing now was taken on an iPhone X through the new smartphone gimbal from Yi Technology, who are renowned for their fantastic budget action cams and GoPro killer, the Yi 4K Plus. Again, review up there. This is the Yi 3-axis smartphone gimbal. It's available now for $130 and fits any smartphone from 54 to 86 millimeters. So let's take a closer look. First off, just briefly, what you're getting inside the box is the gimbal itself and a micro USB charging cable. That's it. There's nothing else in the box. There's no case included. And once you've adjusted this to fit your phone, it probably won't fit back in the box either. So I would highly suggest that you buy a separate carry case for it, which is an additional $10, $15 from a third-party manufacturer. So before you can use the gimbal, you need to fit it for your phone. And this is really just a process of placing your phone into the cradle and then adjusting this horizontally so that it balances when held upright. This process only needs to be done once, assuming you don't change your phone. Now it fits my iPhone X absolutely fine. However, when I tried it with the Sony Xperia XZ2, I did find that the cradle was pressing down on the power button, which is just in the middle of the device, as well as the camera sensor was a bit too far towards the middle of the phone, which meant that it was actually capturing some of the gimbal itself in the shots, which is obviously not good. So while it will fit most smartphones, it will fit some better than others. Now, to the untrained eye, a gimbal looks a lot like a selfie stick. And while it can be used for that, this one isn't really designed for it. If you mainly want to use one to take selfie videos, there are better models out there available for you to use. Ones that have, for instance, a selfie extendable stick bit built in, so you can get that extra reach. So the Yi gimbal has 3 motors built into it along each of the 3 rotational axes. And then inside is a gyroscope, and depending on which mode you have it in, the motors will attempt to cancel out the movements that you make on the stick with your hand. So the Yi gimbal, this model has 3 modes of operation. The first is pan. In this mode, the rotation and tilt will be locked while the panning of the device, that's the left and right, will follow where you point the stick, but smoothly. So in this mode, it'll basically point wherever you point and stay upright. So this is great if you know that your subject and your height won't be changing that much. In this example footage, you can see that I'm just circling the subject. The height doesn't change other than mine just stepping around them to rotate. Now in the second mode, called lock mode, both the pan and the tilt will be locked in a particular direction, meaning that your phone is going to look straight forward regardless of how much you twist or move the stick. So this I found was the most difficult mode to get the hang of really, unless you're standing right in front of your subject and you're going to be walking backwards or walking forwards just following them. You probably don't want to use this mode, it's quite difficult. Now in both of those modes, you have manual control with a joystick on the front of the device here. So with this, you can make it spin around or you can change the tilt up and down. So lastly is pan and tilt mode. And in this mode, pan and tilt are both going to follow exactly what you do with the stick. So if you point it downwards, it's going to slowly point down. And if you go left and right, it's going to follow you there too. So this allows you to do the most dynamic sweeping shots that you can do. And this I found was the most useful mode because it offers you full creative freedom. So as I mentioned, it's not really best for selfies. There is no selfie mode per se. You could probably do it using the other modes, but it's not really designed for that. There are better choices out there if you want it just for selfies. Now, although not strictly required, there is also an accompanying Yi Gimbal app which you can install to your iOS or Android smartphone. So the main reason to use the Gimbal app is for the object tracking that it offers. So in this mode, you can choose an object to focus on, and then the gimbal itself will attempt to keep that object within the frame of your shot. Regardless of what motions you make with your hand, the motors will force the gimbal to move around and follow the object. So this is great if you're trying to follow something with a lot of motion in it, something like if you're on bike or if you're following a skateboarder. Like that, it should make that a bit easier. Unfortunately, my main frustration with the app is that it seemed to arbitrarily limit the modes that I could shoot in. So for instance, the iPhone X supports 4K at 60 frames a second. However, when using the Yi Gimbal app, you're limited to 4K at 30 frames a second. On the Sony Xperia XZ2, which can do 4K HDR at 30 frames a second, 4K wasn't even available at all in the Yi Gimbal app. The other thing that I found really frustrating with the app was that it didn't save the videos that you shot with it directly to the camera roll. You had to go into the private library area, click on every shot individually and export from that screen, then go back, select another shot to export. It would have been all right if there was a select all, export all button, but there wasn't even that. You had to do each one individually, which got incredibly frustrating after a while. So, should you buy the Yi Smartphone Gimbal? You've seen a selection of the sort of shots that you can take with this. Now, I'm no pro videographer, obviously. I'm just trying to show that anyone of any skill level can really benefit from a smartphone gimbal by having all of your footage just smoothed out a little bit. Now, while it won't make your shots perfectly smooth, it can only affect rotations, for instance. It can't affect positional movements, such as when you're walking around, the natural gait of going up and down or going downstairs. Those will still be in your shots. It does give you a lot more stabilization than you would get just with your smartphone alone. And if you're filming at 60 frames a second, like I did for the intro to this video, you can slow it down and then get some lovely slow motion, which gives that added feeling of super silky smooth footage. On the other hand, the Yi Gimbal app is seriously frustrating, and the fact that it limits you to less than what your device is capable of is really quite annoying. At this point, there are a number of other options on the smartphone stabilizer market. The DJI Osmo Mobile 2, for instance, or the Zhiyun Smooth 4, which even comes with a case and has a focus dial for doing those focus pulls, as well as offering tripod legs. It does a bit more for about the same price. Now, typically when Yi enters a market, they come in and seriously undercut competitors without compromising on quality. However, in this case, I think they've missed the mark just a little. Perhaps they've just entered the market, which is already too competitive for them. So if you can find the Yi Smartphone Gimbal on sale for around $80 to $90, I'd say pick it up. It's a bargain, especially if you're on a very tight budget. You're definitely going to benefit from it. But if you can afford to spend a little bit more, maybe look at some of the competitors which just give you more features for your money. At $130, it's a little bit more difficult to recommend this. Anyway, thanks for watching. You can pick up your Yi Smartphone Gimbal now from Amazon or read the full review over at the link in the description at makeuseof.com. If you appreciated this review, if it helped you to make a purchasing decision in some way, please hit like and consider subscribing. We do 2 reviews and giveaways every single week, as well as the occasional technology tips, tricks, and DIY tech tutorials. Until next time, you've been watching makeuseof.com reviews.